in construction. We've ensured that the UK is the only country in the world not paying 50% tariffs to the United States, and we've boosted trade defences to protect the sector against foreign imports. The steel strategy that we'll publish later in the year will also deliver up to £2.5 billion of investment to help maintain jobs and growth.
David Chadwick, Liberal Democrats spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The UK Government says Wales is getting record-breaking funding to tackle NHS waiting lists. But for my constituent, Melanie Walker, the reality is the opposite. After waiting 59 weeks for a hip operation, she's now been told she must wait for another 45. Why? Because Paris Teaching Health Board is artificially extending waiting times for patients treated in Shropshire and Herefordshire to match lower Welsh averages, a cost-cutting move driven by the Welsh Government. Does the Secretary of State think this is fair to Melanie or consistent with her government's pledge to reduce waiting times?
Secretary of State.
I'm very sorry to hear about Melanie's situation, but I would say to the honourable member that his party were in government with the Conservative government during the coalition years that delivered horrible austerity on Wales, which led to the public service in Wales is being degraded. He's part of his party are the architect of that.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
The Chancellor says that cutting red tape for bankers will trickle down to households. The 2008 financial crash taught us that this was utter nonsense. And of course, the Secretary of State for Wales just mentions things that happened in the past. In 2023, she said 12 years of trickle-down and trickle-out growth strategies have failed to deliver for Britain. So I ask her, does she stand by what she said in opposition, or does she toe the line for the sake of the Chancellor's friends in the City?
Secretary of State.
I apologise to the right honourable lady. I didn't hear the start of her question, I'm afraid. But what I would say about tax and what the Chancellor has talked about is that we stand by our manifesto commitment not to increase income tax, employee NICs or VAT. The Chancellor has said it would be irresponsible to write future budgets months in advance, especially given the global situation. Now, clearly there are costs and implications to every decision that this Parliament makes, but we are remaining focused on growing our economy in Wales and across the UK.
Roberts.
One way of avoiding answering the question, Mr Speaker. And my point here is that Labour's skewed sense of fairness doesn't stop at the banks and prioritising their interests over others. It's also hitting our farmers and rural communities too. The Farmers Union of Wales has warned that Labour's planned APR reforms will do irreversible damage to the Welsh family farm. So looking ahead to next week's Royal Welsh Show, will she agree at last that what we really need is a tax on extreme wealth, not a tax on those who feed us and who sustain our rural economies?
Secretary of State.
At the autumn budget, we demonstrated our commitment to our fiscal rules whilst maintaining high levels of investment to rebuild our public services and investment in farming as well, after the mess that the Tories left behind. We've repeatedly said that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden, and that has been reflected in the decisions that we've taken so far. Tax changes, as she knows, are a matter for the Chancellor.
Sarah Edwards.
Question number 3, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, our industrial strategy will unlock growth right across Wales and support tens of thousands of new jobs, targeting areas of our strength from aerospace in North Wales to the world's first compound semiconductor cluster in South Wales. We've announced a new centre for doctoral training in compound semiconductors led by Swansea University, plus a new defence growth deal and £30 million for Local Innovation Partnerships Fund, just to name a few.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Like many members in this House, I welcome the Government's industrial strategy and its focus on growth for our local communities. Across Wales, we have a number of ex-mining towns which face the challenge of retraining and upskilling their local workforce. My constituency of Tamworth, an ex-mining town, faces similar challenges. So can I therefore ask the Minister how the industrial strategy will support ex-mining towns across Wales and my constituency of Tamworth?
Minister.
Well, indeed, Mr. Speaker, there are many job opportunities coming through the industrial strategy to Wales, but of course we're also ensuring that local communities have the money available to secure the safety of the coal tips which have been left, the industrial legacy there. So 118 million additional funding on top of the 25 million that we've already dedicated to that. And as she will know, we are forging ahead with the industrial zones that we have in Wales and with the free ports that we have in Wales and with the supply chains for the various industries that I've just mentioned in my previous answer, and that will include, I know, industries in Tamworth.
Mims Davies, Shadow Secretary of State.
So let's have some reality. Today, inflation hit 3.6%, Mr. Speaker, the highest across the G7. This UK Labour government has a glossy shine on its so-called industrial strategy, but it's simply proving their actions and ethos only deliver worse outcomes for Wales. As businesses across Wales are now facing a disgraceful double whammy, just this week, Labour in Cardiff passing plans to impose their dire tourism tax. Has the Minister actually carried out with the Welsh Government any meaningful assessment to see how many jobs will be lost as the vital 100,000-strong Welsh tourism sector will be impacted by this tax and because of the two Labour governments' failing Wales approach?
Minister.
Well, the Welsh tourism sector is thriving, and last year British residents took over 7 million overnight trips in Wales, spending more than £2 billion. And as the opposition spokeswoman will know, more than 40 countries and holiday destinations around the world have introduced a form of visitor levy, including Greece, Amsterdam, Barcelona and California. And many of us have paid taxes abroad without even noticing. If a visitor levy were introduced by all Welsh local authorities, it could raise up to £33 million, and this money would help to support the long-term thriving industry in Wales, as well as providing facilities that local people can use, like toilets. And I'm confident that the Welsh Government will work with businesses and tourists alike to get this right.
Elsa Bundle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 4.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer questions 4 and 9 together. We are investing an historic £445 million, at least £445 million, into Welsh Rail to right the years of underfunding by previous Conservative governments to unleash Wales's economic potential. This funding will support the permanent closing of level crossings on the North Wales main line, enabling increased services across North Wales that will improve cross-border connectivity, create jobs and boost economic growth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor's announcement of at least £445 million for Welsh Rail will be transformative for Welsh passengers and better connect workers with jobs across North Wales and Manchester. This will only be achieved, however, if we are all pulling in the same direction. What steps, therefore, will be taken by the Wales Office to ensure that national governments, devolved governments and our combined authority in Greater Manchester are working together to improve connectivity and bring the people of the North West and North Wales closer together?
Secretary of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, she's absolutely right. That's why I was pleased to see Welsh Government's Cabinet Secretary Ken Skates recently launched Network North Wales in Wrexham. This is a really exciting plan that will better connect communities in North Wales and North West England through more rail and bus services and greater integration. Benefits will include 50% more timetable services on the North Wales main line, boosting cross-border connectivity and driving economic growth between North Wales and the North West of England. And in addition, the investment in rail infrastructure will boost capacity on the Wrexham to Liverpool line.
Dave Robertson.
Mr. Speaker, and well done. Question number 9, please, sir.
No, just the question. Just the question.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask if the Secretary of State agrees with me that the introduction of the Midlands Rail Hub project that will see an additional train per hour coming from Cardiff in the south of Wales to the Midlands is a great sign that this government is investing not just in Wales, not just in the Midlands, but across the whole country?
Secretary of State.
Can I thank him for his question and also for his very good Welsh? The first phase of the Midlands Rail Hub will enable additional trains between Birmingham and South Wales, strengthening cross-border connectivity between Wales and England. And this is absolutely what this government's investment is about, to create jobs, to create growth and to connect Wales and England.
Dave Roberts. Go on. James Davis, Shadow Secretary of State.
Okay, so let's have another reality check. Mr. Speaker, if I may, another reality check. Information provided to us by the Department for Transport confirms the Conservatives' funded expenditure on Welsh Rail exceeded £5 billion over our time in office, underpinned by our plans for delivering the North Wales Main Line. Yet, in January's Welsh Affairs Select Committee, the Welsh Secretary roundly criticised Welsh Rail before claiming, and I quote, "That is a direct consequence, I'm afraid, of the last 14 years of underfunding." As usual, this government's words and belief versus reality are poles apart. Mr. Speaker, this government, this Labour government, is now offering peanuts, just 400 million miserably over an entire decade. Will the Minister now retract those past claims made to the Select Committee and similar ones made to the Welsh Office's government social media account?
Secretary of State.
No, I won't.
Will Forster.
Mr. Speaker.
Who's on it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Excuse me. He will know that this was an error made under the previous Conservative government. Heavy rail infrastructure is reserved in Wales, and like every heavy rail project in England, Barnett consequentials do not apply. The UK government's rail network enhancements pipeline funds East West Rail, or Oxcam Rail as it's more commonly known, and also directly funds projects in Wales, such as the historic, at least £445 million investment in rail in Wales that was announced in the spending review.
Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government has claimed that listing Oxford and Cambridgeshire Rail Line, it's England only, in past documents was just an accounting error by the former Conservative government, and that the project hasn't been reclassified to deprive Wales of funding. But 4 separate government documents list it as England only, and over £1 million in Barnett consequentials were already paid to Wales on that basis. Does the Secretary of State honestly stand by her claim that it's just been reclassified and this is an intention to deprive Wales of fair funding?
Secretary of State.
So, as I have just explained, there was an error made by the previous Conservative government. Heavy rail was and is and always is reserved. The Welsh Government will not be required to repay any Barnett consequentials provided to it as a result of any error that took place under the Conservative Government.
Alex Burris.
Mr. Speaker, the Welsh Government allocated over £1 billion to transport in their recent budget. This investment was possible after 14 years of critical underinvestment by the party opposite, and should hopefully provide funding to stations such as Ely Mill Station in my constituency of Cardiff West. Can the Secretary of State then therefore please tell me why the Welsh Conservatives and Plaid Cymru voted against this investment, extra funding to fix our roads, to build new trains and to improve our buses?
Secretary of State.
And I thank my honourable friend. Their decision to vote against the additional funding was absolutely inexplicable, as was their decision to vote against extra money for the NHS, extra money for education, extra money for businesses. I could go on. They stand here and can criticise this government when they vote against extra money for Wales.
Gregory Stafford.
Question number 6.
Minister.
Well, this government is steadfastly committed to family farms in Wales. That is why we protected the farm budget at its current level and allocated £337 million to the Welsh Government at the autumn budget. Furthermore, the UK-EU summit on the 19th of May, the Prime Minister announced that the UK would deliver a new agri-food deal with the European Union. Routine SPS border checks will be eliminated with less paperwork and fewer costs. British goods such as dairy, fish, eggs and red meat, currently subject to 100% documentary checks and up to 30% physical checks, will see these removed entirely.
Gregory Stafford.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the aims of the Sustainable Farming Scheme are laudable, many farmers across Wales are expressing real concern about its complexity, the potential reduction in food production and the adequacy of the financial support on offer. So what assurances can the Minister give that the scheme will be simplified, sufficiently funded and implemented in a way that supports both the environmental goals and the economic viability of Welsh farming communities?
Well, if I may just say to the honourable gentleman, the scheme will have a transition period and BPS available for those not in the SFS, although this will be reduced by 40% next year. And the Welsh Government are prioritising their money on the SPIFs to encourage farmers to join the scheme and start benefiting from it. And I will just say that the Farming Union of Wales, the FUW, says that the plan proposes workable payment rates and provides much needed stability for the sector.
Catherine Fuchs.
Mr. Speaker. The Welsh Government's budget contained over £300 million to support Welsh farmers. Is it not the case that Plaid Cymru and the Tories put the Welsh farmers' livelihoods at risk by voting against this crucial
Minister.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely shocking that Plaid Cymru and the Tories in the Senedd voted against a budget which is giving that money to Welsh farmers.
Parin Moon.
7, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In June, the Crown Estate announced that they will partner with Equinor and Wyntglas to develop floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea. These projects will create over 5,000 new jobs, leveraging £1.4 billion in private investment. This will deliver generational change in Wales. We're supporting this industry with an £80 million investment in Port Talbot Port and a £1 billion clean energy supply chain fund to support offshore wind across the UK.
Remove.
Whereas should I say, diolch yn fawr, Mr. Speaker. The proposed floating offshore wind farms of the Celtic Sea lie between the two ancient Celtic nations of Wales and Cornwall. The Celtic Sea will not only be a valuable source of renewable energy, but has the potential to create thousands of jobs across South Wales and Cornwall. Does the Minister agree with me that local funding economic development is essential to realise this potential, and working hand in hand with Cornwall, Wales will play a key role in helping to unleash the Cornish Celtic tiger?
Secretary of State.
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question? He is right that floating offshore wind does present significant opportunities for Wales and the UK. And in the leasing round that has just taken place, we have a first mover advantage in this new technology of the future. Earlier this month, the Energy Secretary granted development consent for the Mona offshore wind farm. That's going to bolster North Wales's offshore wind industry. But all of this is contributing to securing our energy independence and bringing down bills for people in Cornwall, in Wales and the rest of the UK.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, I know that chair wasn't for me. Can I just say to the Honourable Lady, when it comes to offshore wind in Wales, the waters that will be the manufacture of that offshore wind will be the same waters that flow by Northern Ireland, the same waters that flow by England, the same waters that flow by Scotland. Is it not time, Minister, to have a strategy, offshore wind strategy, for all of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Because if we do it together, then we'll do it better. Thank you.
Secretary of State.
I always believe that if we do things together, we do them better.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
We are committed to spending 5% of the UK's GDP on national security by 2035. The spending review invested to keep our people safe with a £10.9 billion real terms increase to the Ministry of Defence budget. This will help grow the Welsh economy and our thriving defence sector, which is home to over 160 companies employing more than 20,000 people right across Wales.
Olivia Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government's commitment to spend 5% of GDP on national security will be transformational for Wales and transformational for my constituency, where thousands are employed in the defence sector and where we've welcomed a £15 billion boost for the atomic weapons establishment. Does the Secretary of State and the Minister agree with me that both our national security and our local economies are better off with Labour?
Minister.
Well, absolutely, Mr. Speaker. Our ambition is to become a defence industrial superpower by 2025. We are making defence an engine for growth, boosting prosperity, jobs and security for working people across the UK. As part of this, we will establish the UK Defence Innovation Fund with £400 million to fund and grow UK-based companies. And we are launching the new regional defence growth deals across the UK, including a cluster in Wales.
We now come to questions to Prime Minister Jacob Collier.
On, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's always been support across this House for the United Kingdom fulfilling our obligations to Afghans who served alongside British forces. We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Ministers who served under the party opposite have serious questions to answer about how this was ever allowed to happen. The chair of the Defence Committee has indicated that he intends to hold further inquiries. I welcome that and hope that those who were in office at the time will welcome that scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, President Macron's state visit last week saw us secure historic agreements, coordinating our nuclear deterrence, a major investment in Sizewell C, and a landmark returns deal, a crucial next step in restoring order to our immigration system. Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, I will host Chancellor Merz for further talks on our security and the economy. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Families in Burton and Uttoxeter are watching their smart meters like hawks and dreading that moment when their energy bill lands on the doorstep. So I welcome Labour's Warm Homes discount that is going to mean £150 off energy bills for millions of people across this country, providing meaningful support in these difficult times. Can the Prime Minister set out how this is going to help support families in my constituency and around the country?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for his question. I, of course, met his constituent Nicola in her kitchen, and she told me about how hard she's working to support her 3 children, but the past decade has let her down with false promises and public services array. Mr. Speaker, she told me about the difference the Warm Homes discount will make, £150 off energy bills, and she had a meter, if I recall, in her kitchen recording how much energy she was using. And it would make all the difference to her, is what she told me. And I promise Nicola, my honourable friend, there's much more to come.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the head of the OBR warned the government that higher and higher levels of taxes are bad for growth. Does the Prime Minister agree?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what's bad for growth. 14 years of a Tory government. That's what the stagnant growth for 14 years, leaving a £22 billion black hole. What we've achieved, Mr. Speaker, in the first quarter of this year is the highest growth in the G7, something we promised before the election. Investment of £120 billion into this country, which is a record in the first year of any government, and 3 trade deals, all of which will boost growth.
Mr. Speaker, he's talking about what he achieved. We just heard that inflation is up again, the worst in the G7. We left him with 2% inflation. We have borrowing up, unemployment up, taxes are up under his government. The fact is the Prime Minister doesn't get it, so let me tell him. His budget last year had high taxes. That's why the economy is contracting. But, Mr. Speaker, the government has said that they won't put up taxes for people on modest incomes. But they also seem incapable of explaining who is in that category. So can the Prime Minister clear up the confusion and tell us what he thinks a modest income is?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think of the working people across this country who put in every day and don't get back what they deserve, and that's who we're working for. That's who we're fixing the country. The sort of people that work hard but haven't necessarily got the savings to buy themselves out of problems. And, Mr. Speaker, that's who we're working for, and that's why we put the national living wage up. That's an extra £1,400. The national minimum wage up, that's £2,500 a year. The triple lock, Mr. Speaker, that went up pension up £470. And of course, we're extending childcare, opening free breakfast clubs and free school meals. We know exactly who we're working for. She comes here every week and just talks the country down.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not talking the country down, I'm talking him down. I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury said that working people are people who don't get a payslip, but millions of self-employed people don't get a payslip. So are the self-employed next in line for a Labour tax rate?
The self-employed were the very people who suffered under their watch, repeatedly suffered under their watch, particularly, if I remember, during COVID, when they didn't get the support that they needed. But she talks the country down, she cherry-picks. We have created, Mr. Speaker, since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up, and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
I don't know where these 3,000 jobs are coming from. Unemployment has gone up every month under his government. And perhaps he should speak to farmers and small business people and find out what those working people think about his government. But, Mr. Speaker, that's not all. We know the Chancellor is launching a review into pension contributions. It's as clear as day why this is. It is because the government is considering taxing them. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that a tax on pension contributions is a tax on working people?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made absolutely clear manifesto commitments, which she asked me about last week and we're keeping to. I'm not going to write the budget months out from the budget. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the decisions that we took to invest in our NHS, to invest in our public services, all the decisions that they opposed. And it's no wonder that after a first year of a Labour government, business confidence is a 9-year high. That's longer than she's been in government. Mr. Speaker, 384, I'm not withdrawing, I'm going to repeat. Business confidence is at a 9-year high.
Mr. Speaker, he says he's not going to write the budget, but his Chancellor is on the front of the Daily Mirror talking about what she's going to do on taxes. So why can't he do the same in the Chamber? Yes. But I asked him about pension contributions. The truth is he doesn't want to talk about pension contributions. It's all right for the Prime Minister. He has his own special law to stop his personal pension from being taxed. But let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, this is really about choices. My party knows that there is an alternative to tax rises. It's cutting spending, something that they are too scared or perhaps too weak to do. We offered to work with him to reform welfare and make meaningful savings. But his refusal sent a signal, and now the cost of borrowing is rising. The budget is in November, that is months away, and the markets may not wait. What will the Prime Minister be doing over the summer to get a grip on the cost of borrowing?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, they left the most incredible mess in the economy, and now they think that they can lecture others. I think just last week their chairman said that they've done the necessary apologising for the 14 years of failure. They've done the necessary. I didn't hear an apology for the lowest living standards in living history. I didn't hear an apology for the £22 billion black hole. I didn't hear an apology for the Liz Truss mini budget. So maybe she should like to stand up and make that apology now.
Mr. Speaker, he's not doing... Yes. Mr. Speaker, he's not planning on doing anything this summer to fix the economy. The shadow of the last budget is hanging over the entire country. Just yesterday, only the Conservatives supported the two-child benefit cap because only the Conservatives believe in living within our means. Not Labour, not the Liberal Democrats, not Reform. But it's the end of term, Mr. Speaker, so why don't we go through his end of term scorecard? The economy is contracting. Inflation, highest in the G7. Unemployment, up every month under this government. Spending, out of control. Borrowing costs, more expensive than Greece. And this is just the first year, Mr. Speaker. The Labour Party should be ashamed of what it is doing to the country. Mr. Speaker, they can shake their heads as much as they like. The fact is, this summer, they're going to have to go to their constituents and explain why they've been making such a mess over the last 12 months. And isn't the case, Mr. Speaker, that the worst, given that this is just their first year, the worst is yet to come?
We're happily going to go to our constituents. We're going to tell them we promised 2 million extra NHS appointments and we delivered 4 million extra appointments. Mr. Speaker, I've got to upgrade that. It's now 4.5 million extra appointments. So we're going to tell our constituents that. Then we're going to tell them about the free school meals we're rolling about, the free breakfast clubs, the free childcare and school uniform costs. We'll tell them about that. And then when we've done that, we'll move on to affordable houses and tell them about the £39 billion we're investing. When we finish that, we'll tell them about the rail and road upgrades across the country, the £120 billion investment, and of course the 3 trade deals. And Mr. Speaker, we're only just getting started.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will never know exactly how much it meant to victims of the Troubles in Northern Ireland from right across society when he came, looked them in their eyes and promised them that no murderer would be immune from prosecution. Can he tell us when the last time he spoke to the Taoiseach about the shared approach to this issue was, and can he recommit today to those victims to ensure that no murderer will be seen as above the law?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a really important issue. Can I begin by saying I have a profound respect and debt to our veterans who served. This is a complicated issue, and we've got to get this right. Veterans are at risk because of the false promises of the last government. Let's be clear. They made a false promise of immunity that does not exist. It was unlawful, it was struck down, and it was undeliverable. Their failed Legacy Act leaves veterans exposed with no settled process. We will create a secure, transparent system that protects veterans from unjustified persecution and gives victims, families and survivors the confidence that they need in the process.
Sir Ed David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's words about the shocking Afghan data breach under the previous government kept secret for 3 years? And he will have our support if he decides to pursue a public inquiry. Mr. Speaker, I know the Prime Minister will agree that the shocking rise of anti-Semitism we have seen since Hamas's October the 7th terror attacks has no place in our society. British Jews should not have to live in fear of hatred, racism and abuse on our streets or online. A new report from the Board of Deputies Commission on Anti-Semitism, chaired by Lord Mann and Dame Penny Mordaunt, has set out 10 recommendations to tackle this appalling scourge. Will the Prime Minister study this report, and will his government respond to it in full?
Prime Minister.
Yes, we will, and we must fight anti-Semitism wherever we find it, as we must fight all hate offences, crimes and incidents wherever we find them.
Sir Ed David.
Can I thank the Prime Minister for that reply? I hope we will see more action to tackle anti-Semitism. But turning to the Middle East now, Mr. Speaker, the world is looking on in horror at the scenes from Gaza. And now Netanyahu's ministers want to lock the whole population of Gaza into effectively a giant prison. A plan that would clearly amount to ethnic cleansing, as former Israeli Prime Minister Olmert has said. Does the Prime Minister agree that this is utterly abhorrent and unacceptable? And will he make clear to the Israeli government that the UK will not stand idly by and will act, starting by sanctioning Prime Minister Netanyahu himself?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Well, I am appalled by these suggestions in relation to Gaza, just as I'm appalled by the reports of yet more civilians being killed whilst trying to access aid. So on both fronts, I'm appalled by what we are seeing and what we're hearing. We raise it regularly, as he would expect. In relation to the civilians being killed, I would expect them to be fully and transparently investigated with full accountability for any failings. And Israel must clearly put in place measures that properly protect civilians in line with international law. And that is the case we're pressing repeatedly. But we do also want to see, and alongside that, an immediate ceasefire so that the hostages, the remaining hostages, can be brought out and aid at volume and at speed can be got in, and a political process opened that, in my view, is the only way we're going to get a lasting solution.
And the back there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, 4-year-old Eli Tester was killed in Rottenstall Cemetery when a memorial stone fell on him. All of Rossendale was shocked by this tragedy, so I hope the Prime Minister will join me in offering our deepest condolences to Eli's parents and family. And Mr. Speaker, families in Rossendale are also deeply concerned about reports that Reform-led Lancashire County Council are considering cuts to nursery funding. This would raise costs for working parents and might even force some nurseries to close. If this is an example of the sort of efficiencies that Reform are considering, then all of Lancashire, indeed all of us, should be worried. So would the Prime Minister join me in asking Lancashire County Council to think again?
Prime Minister.
Can I extend my deepest condolences to Eli's friends and family? And I do join him in urging the new Reform Council to think again and to change their mind on damaging cuts that hit children and young families. I have to say, my honourable friend is doing a much better job than his predecessor, the Conservative Party chairman under Liz Truss, who has now joined Reform, which proves once again, if you vote Tory, you get Reform, and if you vote Reform, you get the Tories. Whilst both of them are cutting services at home, we support families with free school meals, free breakfast clubs, and extending free childcare.
Should Desmond swear?
Jack Straw told us that the 98 Act places on us no expectation that we will remedy a declaration of incompatibility issued by a court. So the Prime Minister is wrong to say that the Legacy Act is struck down. But his own proposals, which open the door to compensation to Gerry Adams and place in jeopardy our own servicemen, present enormous difficulty to those of us who have served, increasingly on his own benches. Will he consider that?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the failed Legacy Act was struck down by the courts in Northern Ireland, and that leaves veterans exposed. What we're doing is creating a secure, transparent system that protects veterans from unjustified persecution, but also gives victims, families and survivors the confidence that they need in the process.
Paul Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Workers in Rochdale on the minimum wage received a much-needed pay rise this summer, thanks to this government. But honest businesses are being undermined by the menace of illegal working, particularly illegal working by illegal migrants from Iran and Iraq in bogus barbershops and fake vape shops. So will the Prime Minister agree with me that we need to speed up the rollout of digital ID, particularly to help our police and immigration staff crack down on this grey market that ruins our high streets and undercuts the workers' pay of British workers?
Well, my honourable friend is an excellent champion for Rochdale and a strong supporter, I know, of his local police and trading standards teams. Since we came to power, Mr. Speaker, we've ramped up enforcement raids on illegal working. Arrests have gone up by 50%, and we're tightening the law on delivery drivers. Digital ID will help us tackle illegal working, and we're rolling out the use of e-visas to have digital records of immigration status and checks to allow on-the-spot checks of anybody's right to work.
James McCleary.
Severe pregnancy sickness, hyperemesis gravidarum or HG, can mean vomiting more than 20 times a day. It causes physical discomfort, acute malnutrition and severe dehydration, which often leads to hospitalisation. It has profound and long-lasting mental health consequences. Recently, it was reported the woman took her own life after being denied access to the only licensed treatment, Zomvia. Tragically, her unborn child died too. The drug is licensed and available, yet women face a cruel postcode lottery to access it. Will the Prime Minister work urgently with the Department for Health to end this scandal so that every woman who needs Zomvia can get it wherever she lives? And will he meet with me and campaigners to look at this as a matter of urgency?
Prime Minister.
Well, thank him for raising this really important issue, and obviously incredibly sorry to hear about the tragic case that he mentions. As he will know, the availability of this drug is regulated across the NHS by NICE, who make decisions on which treatments provide the best care for patients whilst maintaining value for money with the taxpayer. But I will make sure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister to see what more can be done to get this treatment to patients who need it.
Navandu Mishra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Stockport, approximately 20% of families live in social housing. After Stockport Liberal Democrat and Conservative councillors blocked the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework proposal in 2020, the need for social housing is even more critical. Far too many families are living in insecure, overcrowded accommodation, waiting years for a suitable family home. I welcome Labour's record-breaking £39 billion investment into social and affordable housing, and I want to make sure that communities like mine in Stockport are prioritised. So can I ask the Prime Minister to confirm that these homes will be built, they will be affordable, and will he look again at suspending the right to buy?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are delivering the biggest boost to social and affordable housing in a generation, and proud to do so. Our £39 billion investment will deliver around 300,000 sociable and affordable homes, with at least 60% of homes delivered for social rent. Mr. Speaker, whilst we don't intend to remove the right to buy, which helps social tenants get on the property ladder, we're reforming the scheme to protect social housing stock and encourage councils to deliver more new homes.
Sir Julian Smith.
Mr. Speaker, a much better understanding of the particular needs of autistic and neurodiverse children is vital to expand capacity in mainstream education for SEND pupils. Can I urge him, as he looks at this bill over the summer, the SEND bill, to introduce mandatory training for all teachers and all staff on autism and neurodiversity?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for that contribution, because parents and children have been failed far too often. We are committing an additional £1 billion into SEND, but there must be meaningful reform alongside it, and new teachers must have the appropriate training. So we're committed to reviewing, to working with parents and teachers, and we'll take away his suggestion. And I invite him and others across the House to work with us on this important reform, because I think this issue has been raised more than any other with me at Prime Minister's question. It's clearly a broken system. It needs reform, and if we can work together across the House to get it right, I think that is the least we owe to parents and children across the country. Thank you.
Blocker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I commend the Prime Minister for his work in tackling arbitrary detention of British citizens abroad and warmly welcome the creation of a special envoy. The Prime Minister will know of the anguish of the families of Jimmy Lai, Ryan Cornelius, Abdel Fattah, Jagtar Singh Johal and others. So can he tell us when he anticipates the appointment of the envoy, and will they have real powers like their counterparts in Canada and the United States to help bring our people home?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I start by thanking him for his work on the APBG, championing the plight of British nationals facing the most difficult circumstances overseas. We do routinely raise these cases with international counterparts, as he would expect, and we're deeply committed to getting them home and united with their loved ones. As part of strengthening support for British nationals overseas, we are working at pace to get the envoy role set up, and I'll make sure that he's kept updated in relation to that.
Blake Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government plans for English devolution and NHS reform suggest that integrated care boards should align with new strategic authorities. The government's plan for Bedfordshire won't currently achieve this. So what assurances can the Prime Minister provide that local NHS reorganisation will be good value for money, improve local accountability and deliver the healthcare services needed to serve my constituents in rural mid-Bedfordshire including the much-needed GP surgery in Wixham's?
Prime Minister.
The points you make about good value for money and accountability are really important. They're embedded in the work we're doing with the NHS at the moment, which is improving under our watch, not only the waiting lists, but in other respects. The 10-year plan for the NHS, which is intended to ensure that the NHS is fit for the future, has a number of principles, including principles of local accountability.
Brandish.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the 11th of June, Alexander Dennis announced that it was planning to stop bus manufacturing in Scotland. My honourable friend from Falkirk and I have both met with the workers, the trade unions, the company and both UK and Scottish Government ministers to see how closure can be averted. Alexander Dennis needs commitment of orders for 2025 and 2026, and elected mayors are ideally placed to do this. Our industrial strategy is right when it says where things are made and by whom matters. So, can the Prime Minister assure Alexander Dennis and the workers that he believes bus manufacturing should have a future in Larbert and Falkirk?
Prime Minister.
I'm grateful to him for raising this, and I'm deeply concerned. It is a deeply concerning time for the workers and their families in Falkirk. I do agree, and we are working with mayors and local leaders to develop a pipeline of future orders for zero-emissions buses, and that's an important aspect here. And the Minister of Local Transport is hosting an urgent meeting of the bus manufacturing expert panel. Mr. Speaker, while Labour mayors in England are ordering Scottish buses, the SNP are ordering buses from China. Just like they ordered ships from Turkey and Poland, not Scottish shipyards. The SNP should be backing Scottish workers.
Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I begin by warmly congratulating the Prime Minister on his first year in office, acknowledge that the Labour manifesto was beautifully written, deeply moving, and like that other great blockbuster of hope and redemption, The Salt Path, a total pack of lies. With joblessness, inflation and debt ballooning, his personal ratings collapsing, and his backbenchers on a work to rule, could the Prime Minister recommend?
Come on, let's get on with the question.
Could the Prime Minister recommend a summer recess read in order to take all our minds away from the calamitous journey on which he and the Chancellor have embarked?
I think most of their backbenchers are already on their summer recess, looking at the benches opposite, Mr. Speaker. We are very proud of our manifesto. It was a very successful manifesto, giving a landslide victory, and now we're very proud to be implementing it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let us be clear in this House. Israel is starving Palestinian children. That is a war crime. Israel is killing Palestinian children as they queue for food. That is a war crime. Our government quite rightly imposes thousands of sanctions on Russia for its war crimes in Ukraine. How many more horrors must we witness before the Prime Minister acts with the same scale of sanctions against Israel to stop this genocide? Don't Palestinian lives matter?
Hear, hear. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, I'm appalled by reports of more civilians being killed in Gaza, particularly when they are trying to access aid. And each of those incidents does need to be fully and transparently investigated, with accountability for any failing. That, of course, has to be alongside the ceasefire that is desperately needed, and we're working hard with others to achieve, to release all of the hostages that remain, but also to protect civilians and get much more aid at speed and volume into Gaza.
Lincoln John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can see why you call these sessions Prime Minister's questions and not Prime Minister's answers.
carries on, there will be no more. Come on, Lincoln John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the magnificent success of the England cricket team earlier on this week and the triumphal return of Mr. Jofra Archer, would the Prime Minister agree that what he needs to get from his ministers over the next 12 months is more pace and less spin?
Prime Minister.
My ministers have delivered on the NHS, on the economy, on rail, etc. He needs a break.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Successive Conservative governments failed to invest in the North East's transport infrastructure. Whilst the Labour government is already changing that with the £1.8 billion recently secured for the region. Upgrading Moor Farm and Seatonburn roundabouts can build on that, unlocking growth, and it's supported by local people and businesses. Does the Prime Minister share my disappointment that rather than support my campaign for upgrades, the Conservative leadership in Northumberland County Council are actively undermining my lobbying efforts to deliver this game changer for the North East?
Prime Minister. She's doing a superb job for Northumberland, and I'm happy to set out what we've delivered. Over £400 million of funding for Northumberland County Council this year. That's a 5.8% increase this year, Mr. Speaker, an 80% increase in the number of homes starting construction in her area, a near £30 million increase in funding for Northumbria Police, and 14 free breakfast clubs in Northumberland, supporting over 3,000 children. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During my meetings with guests on the Homes for Ukraine scheme in my Newton Abbot constituency, they are telling me that they are worried about their visas running out, even with the 18-month extension. They see reports of Ukrainians being refused asylum in the UK since it's said to be safe to return to Ukraine, even while Putin's missiles explode in Ukraine cities in record numbers. Some of their children are working through 2- or 3-year education courses and are frightened of having to leave. Will the Prime Minister meet with them and myself to hear their plight and offer them some hope in this uncertain and dangerous world?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for raising this, and we're proud to have offered or extended sanctuary to over 300,000 Ukrainians and their families throughout the visa scheme since the invasion in 2022. We do need to provide certainty and security for Ukrainians in the United Kingdom, and we will provide an additional 18 months permission to remain in the UK and continued rights to live, work and study here as well.
James Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2017, I led a select committee inquiry that warned of an emerging disaster in SEND. Those warnings went unheeded by the Conservatives, who left behind a broken system, which even they have admitted since is lose, lose, lose. Can the Prime Minister confirm that this Labour government's rebuilt SEND system will be shaped by listening to the needs of SEN families, never again ignored, but served in the best traditions of a Labour government?
Prime Minister.
Well, he's right, and I think there's general agreement across the House that the system is broken, just like almost everything they touched, which was broken at the end of 14 miserable years. It doesn't work for parents, and it lets down children, and we will reform it. We're already investing an additional £1 billion, but we do need a system that truly supports every child. We're developing proposals, and I want to work across the House in order to get the right outcome.
Final question, Pippa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yet again, we're suffering record-breaking heat waves and drought, which are worrying people in my constituency of South Cambridgeshire, which are both the fastest-growing and the most water-stressed area in the country. The proposed Fens Reservoir is important, but will only provide water for the already ambitious house-building plans, not the thousands of new homes that the government proposes. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the water crisis in Greater Cambridge is a deal-breaker for the government's growth plans, and will he help me urgently convene a ministerial roundtable with the Cambridge Water Scarcity Group?
She's right to draw attention to the drought and the question more generally of reservoirs. It is shocking that a new reservoir hasn't been built for a very, very long time, not at all in the previous 14 years. We are rebuilding now, and we're doing that alongside the infrastructure and housing that we also need to build, and we'll work across the House on that.
We'll let the front benches change over. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Sir Andrew Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I ask the Minister if she will make a statement on Britain's response to the worsening situation in Sudan?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sudan is the worst humanitarian crisis on record. Over 30 million people need aid and 12 million people have been displaced. Famine is spreading fast and new reports confirm that the situation will deteriorate in the next 3 months. Cholera is also now widespread. Life-saving assistance continues to be blocked by the parties. Last month, an appalling attack on a UN convoy delivering life-saving aid to those fleeing violence in El Fasher killed 5 aid workers. The deliberate targeting of aid workers clearly violates international law, and as the United Nations Security Council penholder on Sudan, the UK led calls for accountability for such attacks, including through the UK-penned press statement on the 12th of June. Last week, the Security Council, the International Criminal Court of the Prosecutor, found reasonable grounds to believe that war crimes and crimes against humanity may well have been committed and continue to be committed in Darfur. The perpetrators must be held to account. The UK continues to play a leading role in ensuring that aid gets to where it's most needed. In April, the Foreign Secretary brought together a broad coalition of partners to build consensus on strengthening humanitarian access. The co-chair's statement calling on the parties to facilitate humanitarian access in accordance with their commitments in the Jeddah Declaration. Over £810 million in funding for Sudan was announced, including £120 million of UK aid, supporting over 650,000 people this year. In the absence of a ceasefire, Mr. Speaker, the humanitarian situation will only worsen. We continue to call on the warring partners to place the interests of the Sudanese people over their pursuit of a military victory. The UK is working with our international partners to push the warring partners to return to the negotiating table and commit to a meaningful, sustainable ceasefire. Any process which follows must be inclusive. We underline the importance of a return to a civilian rule that's democratically elected and representative of the whole country. Moves by the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces to establish their own parallel governments will only exacerbate de facto splits and could lead to permanent partition of Sudan, and this is in no one's interests. Mr. Speaker, we have and we will continue to use all diplomatic tools at our disposal to protect civilians, get aid to those who need it most, and support a Sudanese-led peace process with civilians at its heart.
Sir Andrew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for granting this urgent question today. I make no apologies for raising the dire and desperate straits of the Sudanese people again in this House, not least because it is Britain which leads on the Sudanese situation in the United Nations on behalf of all other nations. The people of Sudan are in the throes, as the Minister said, of the worst humanitarian catastrophe in the world, and the situation is worsening, even if such things can hardly be imagined. Earlier this month, Mr. Speaker, the United Nations and international organisations reported mass displacement of tens of thousands of people following the combatant forces advancing across Kordofan states. There have been months of increased mobilisation of fighters, including the recruitment of children from across Darfur. As fighting expands, the Kordofan states are the next deadly front. In the recent and welcome ministerial conference hosted by the Foreign Secretary, much needed money was raised, but the goal of a high-level contact group to drive political efforts toward achieving a ceasefire and protecting Sudanese civilians met with an impasse. Mr. Speaker, we must accept that despite our efforts, the past 2 years have been a story of faltering international endeavour, where world events have cast Sudan into the shadows as its people have faced only deepening peril. So I ask the Minister 3 questions. First, what lessons has the government learned from the siege of El Fasher and the overwhelming of the camp for displaced people at Zamzam to prepare for and protect civilians from the spread of violence across the Kordofan states? How is the government supporting the local emergency response rooms? Secondly, can she confirm that the prevention of atrocities remains a key pillar of British policy and is unaffected by the recent cuts in the development budget? And thirdly and finally, what is the government doing to advance international efforts to protect civilians alongside its pursuit of a ceasefire? Are we to assume the Jeddah process is dead? What discussions has she had with her counterparts in the United States over recent weeks?
Minister.
I thank the member for Sutton Coldfield for his questions and also for his long-standing interest not just in Africa in general, but particularly this awful conflict in Sudan. And of course, Sudan is also a personal priority for the Foreign Secretary, which is why he brought together foreign ministers to try to find a resolution. The Prime Minister has reiterated that the UK will continue to play a key humanitarian role, evidenced by the 120 million of UK aid announced for Sudan this year. And on the question that he asks in relation to the work post-Jeddah, we are working to sustain the momentum of the actions agreed at the conference. We continue to work with multilateral institutions, including the African Union, to ensure that strong African leadership is there in response to the conflict. We've also joined the EU-convened consultative group on Sudan in June, and we've initiated a Friends of Sudan grouping in Geneva to advance our work on the protection of civilians, because he's quite right to say that international law in this regard places a heavy emphasis on prevention of conflict, prevention of atrocities. We continue to identify opportunities to use our role as penholder on the Sudan in the UN Security Council and to galvanise UN Security Council action on the conflict in Sudan. He also specifically asked about the situation in the El Fasher camps, and I want to reassure him that the UK is doing all it can, but the question always is access. We have the money, we have the workers, it's access that we need in order to provide that life-saving aid, and that is the nub of the issue which we are working on.
Abdussalam Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There isn't a single person in my Sudanese diaspora community in Sheffield who haven't been affected by the horrific violence in Sudan. But the most harrowing part for them isn't the regular communication jams, blocking parent from child and brother from sister, or the multiple displacements of millions of the most vulnerable people, or indeed the famine ripping through the population. The worst part is, whilst this, the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, is breaking every boundary we know, world powers continue to look away. The UK government has a unique position as penholder for Sudan, and at the UN Security Council, I appreciate that we called for a ceasefire through the resolution, but the resolution set no deadline for concluding the ceasefire, and it authorised no enforcement mission. So, Minister, my question is, what are we doing to enforce accountability for the shameful complicity of states backing the warring sides, and when will we push for an agreement of a ceasefire so that the people of Sudan can be free from this horror?
Could I thank the Honourable Lady from Sheffield and the loud voice that she has in here on behalf of her Sudanese diaspora. The most important thing that the UK can do to build on the momentum from the London Sudan conference, bearing in mind that we were the first to really have such a conference, is to continue to base our work on the statement from the co-chairs of that important conference, to continue to, as she says, use our role at the United Nations and to work through the new Friends of Sudan grouping in order to keep pushing at the highest level, as she says, using our position on the UN Security Council to galvanise the Security Council action and continue the important supply of aid into the region.
Shadow Minister Wendy Bourne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for granting this urgent question today. I'm also grateful to my right honourable friend, the member for Sutton Coldfield, for pursuing this too. Because, of course, the situation in Sudan is dire. We are deeply concerned at the International Criminal Court's findings last week that there are reasonable grounds to believe that war crimes and crimes against humanity may be being committed in Darfur. The humanitarian situation also continues to deteriorate, with the UN warning on 30th of June of drastic cuts to life-saving food aid for Sudanese refugees fleeing to neighbouring countries. Sudan has also been identified as a global hunger hotspot of highest concern, and without immediate humanitarian assistance, the risk is terrible. With recent attacks on UN aid convoys, can the Minister provide her latest assessment of the situation and the extent of aid blocking? How is she ensuring UK aid, including the £120 million announced at the April Sudan conference, will reach those who need it and that aid workers are protected? More broadly, what new measures is the government taking to compel the warring parties into a ceasefire, to allow more aid in and facilitate deconfliction for delivery in the meantime? And how has she supported Sudanese civilian and political forces to engage in constructive dialogue processes such as the Cairo conference? And what is her assessment about the effectiveness of these processes? Despite the spending review, we are still yet to understand what 0.3% means for bilateral aid. So will she confirm the bilateral spend figures for Sudan this year? Because, of course, Sudan matters. It's not in the UK's national interest for the crossing of red lines in this conflict to persist, nor to have the displacement of people on this scale, nor to see the further destabilisation of this region of Africa. Thank you.
Minister.
I thank the honourable